We are live. We are live. So welcome, guys. Welcome to tonight. This is the second episode of our roundtable discussions. And tonight is going to be a fantastic topic. Quite nervous going into this topic, but I know that this is a very special topic, and it's one that's close to my heart, and I know it's one that's close to your heart because we've seen the damage that it can do, and it's affected so many people, probably us as well, but mainly our friends and those around us that we care so much about. And tonight we are talking about mental health. And I want to welcome on the panel tonight, we've got Lucy, who is a regular. Welcome back, Lucy. And tonight we've got two special guests. And there's, I'm going to let them introduce themselves later on, a little bit later on. But tonight we've got Dave. And Dave, hello, Dave. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. And we've got Nicole. How are you going, Nicole?
Hello. Good.
Excellent. All right. So before we get into introducing you guys and, giving you a bit of time to introduce yourselves, I want to do a check-in with you guys. Okay. So if you were a superhero, what power would you have?
Ooh.
If you were a superhero, oh man, I know what power I would have, according to my wife. But what about you guys?
I'm gonna go real practical and a little bit left field, just based on how I'm feeling tonight. I would say my superhero power, if I could choose one, would actually be serious power napping skills. Like the
that is awesome.
Like that would be my choice tonight.
Yeah. Power napping. That's awesome. How about you, Dave?
I had a few things pop through my mind, but I was thinking one that would be pretty fantastic would be 0 calorie man.
Ooh.
Oh, what?
Pick which foods I wanted to be no calories and enjoy.
Nice.
I think that'd be pretty good.
That's pretty cool. How about you, Nicole?
Oh, yeah, this was hard. I heard about this guy recently that had lost the part of his brain that felt fear. So his kind of superpower was that he just didn't really feel fear. And I think it could be dangerous. But in my circumstance, sometimes I just need to relax. So it'd be great if I didn't feel fear. Maybe I could just turn it on every now and then.
That's cool.
Down a little bit.
Up and down, up and down. That's cool.
Love that.
I have no idea what my superpower is, okay? So my wife is kind of funny. So I came home one birthday of mine, and she bought these gloves. They're like hands. They're like massive hands. I can put my hand in, and I look like that. And I think it's the Hulk's gloves, the Incredible Hulk's, because the reason why she did that is because I'm heavy-handed. I'm heavy-handed, so I move around and I hit something and I just drop and fall off. So the Hulk is my superpower. I know he's already taken, but hey, I'm going to take it off him. No. So I already introduced our two guests tonight, but hey, this is a bit of time to give you guys to introduce yourselves. All right. And we'll start with Dave. How you going, Dave?
Not too bad. So we're kind of on the topic of mental health, right? So I've been involved with mental health from numerous kind of different angles. I'm currently working as a student doctor in Kalgoorlie. I've also worked pre-hospital, so I'm an ambulance officer for St. John's, so I do that regularly as well. I'm an advocate for tackling mental health holistically through as many avenues as possible. And some of you may know me for sharing my own struggles with mental health, and I've done that a few years ago. So if I look familiar, that's probably why.
You were one of our speakers at our mental health youth rally that we had a little while ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. down in Fremantle. And it was good to hear your story then, Dave, and it's good to have you on the panel tonight.
Thank you.
Hey, Nicole. Let's introduce yourself, Nicole.
Sure. If it looks like I'm reading stuff tonight, just as a disclaimer, I totally am. My brain is a bit slow, so it's good when I have something in front of me so I know what I'm going to say. So introducing myself, I'm a musician and a singing teacher. I'm 26 and I live with my husband, Ash, and our roommate / cat, Carol. I've been dealing with anxiety and depression since I was 15 years old, and I've been diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis and a few other things, and possibly getting an ADHD diagnosis as well. There's lots of things going on. I've been treated with medications, as well as seeking help with psychologists, as well as trying to just have a healthier lifestyle. I do not have any medical training, but I have been dealing with a lot of mental illness and that kind of thing for a long time. And I do consider myself an advocate for mental health and wellness.
Thank you so much for sharing, Nicole. And I have to say, I am very, very impressed and also really excited that you are so brave to come on here tonight and be part of this discussion. So hats off to you. Well, I don't have a hat on, but hey, I would take my earphones off to you, but hey, I wouldn't be able to hear anything. But and Lucy, well, everyone knows Lucy.
Hello again, friends.
And we want to give a big shout out to Amy, one of our panelists who is unable to be here tonight. We have been praying for you and your family, Amy. So give baby Hudson a big cuddle for us. All right. The importance of the conversation on mental health tonight is absolutely up there, because half of Australians, which is 50% of Australians, suffer from some kind of mental health. And I know there's a prediction that there will be a 30% rise in mental health disorders following coronavirus. But I want to put a disclaimer there first, is that the things that we'll be sharing tonight and the opinions that will be shared tonight are our personal opinions and also our personal experiences as well. Some are well researched as well, as Dave has been through it himself and also currently studying to be a doctor. So we have some sort of that, but also it is our personal opinions. And also just a warning to our viewers tonight, if there are trigger points or triggering warnings that come up, like topics that we'll discover or discuss, like self-harm, suicide, PTSD, domestic violence, etc., etc. These topics might be discussed tonight. And if you know that these things may trigger some emotional or psychological things for you, then just be careful, just warning you. And also during our discussion, we'll put up some resources and websites that you could use as well. All right, guys. Well, let's get into it. How are you feeling tonight?
Nervous?
Not too bad. All right, a bit nervous. Okay, so I've got a few questions for you. Okay, question number one. We have mentioned, and I have just mentioned it, that up to 50% of Australians will suffer from mental health in their lifetime, and that there is a prediction of a 30% rise in mental health disorders following COVID-19. So it's fair to say that this is a real important topic. So can we talk about some warning signs for depression and anxiety to look for or to look out for yourself and for your family and friends?
Yeah, most certainly. So, I mean, the two most prevalent mental health conditions that a lot of people are aware of, so would be depression and anxiety. And there's multiple different forms of these, and they come in many different shapes and sizes depending on who you are and your background. But some key things to look out for from a depression standpoint, and you may be able to see this in your friends, in your colleagues, in your family, or even pick up on yourself. And sometimes picking up on it yourself can be a bit tricky when you are struggling with it personally. But things to be aware of. So number one, sadness. So low mood, right, can come across in many ways. And one of the first ways it comes across is a loss in interest or a loss of enjoyment in some activities that you used to get a lot of fun, used to have a lot of fun with, or get a lot of enjoyment from. That tends to taper off with depression. Guilt, worthlessness, these thoughts roaming around, they can be quite prominent. And even physical changes as well. So a change in your weight, a change in your appetite, loss of energy, changes in sleep. So waking early or having difficulties getting to sleep. And then some tough ones. So thoughts of self-harm or thoughts of death. So these are some things that if you're struggling with one or multiple, it's definitely worth having a chat to someone about it. Looking at the other side of the coin, so anxiety, as it suggests, kind of worry and fear. So if you are perpetually stressed, perpetually worrying, running through things in your head multiple times, it definitely comes under that anxiety banner. Being restless as well, having poor concentration, poor sleep again, particularly getting to sleep, and even things like muscle tension, tight neck, tight arms, tight legs.
Mate, when I get muscle tension, man, I go to get a massage.
Yeah. And irritability as well.
Yeah.
So little things setting you off, these can all come under the anxiety banner. And
yeah,
ultimately, I mean, these are warning signs, right? If you have any doubt in your mind that your mood, your personality is changing, don't be afraid to tell someone about it. Yeah.
Did as you're speaking there, Dave, I'm just thinking, did you guys or someone that's experienced depression and anxiety ever experience any of these things, and what did you guys do about it?
Do you want to talk on this one, Nicole?
Yeah.
Oh, Nicole, sorry.
Yeah, I definitely have experienced almost everything on that list. It's been ups and downs, of course. Usually, and a lot of the time, and when I was younger as well, anxiety was the bigger thing. And then later on, I've kind of gone deeper into depression because of several reasons. But that's kind of backed off again, and now it's nice. But yeah, definitely, I think one of the main things, and my husband can attest to this, is the irritability and tenseness and all that kind of thing. He knows all about that. But yeah, it's good to know those warning signs, especially if you live with people, because then you can be like, it's not you, it's me. I know I'm having a rough day, maybe something triggered you, or something's going on, and you can just be like, hey, it's not an issue that you need to solve, you just maybe have to be there for me. I don't know, it depends on the day, but being aware of those things is so important.
Were they clear cut?
What do you mean?
Like if your husband didn't know that, would he have, like, if he didn't know you, would he have known that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think he's always known that I've had mental health issues. So maybe if I hadn't have known, or he hadn't have known, it would have been harder to spot. And it usually is quite difficult to spot if you don't know what to look for. So, for example, Ash has been struggling. My husband, Ash, has struggled with things like this as well. But it was only when we kind of got together and I was like, hey, I think you're showing these kinds of signs, that he was like, oh, maybe I have struggled with this, or this is an issue that I might need to deal with, and then we could deal with it from there. But if you don't know, it's hard to tell a lot of the time.
There was something really interesting that I picked up on, Dave, that you said, and probably there were two things. The first one you said was like noticing a change, like, so when maybe someone has, you notice that something is different. So like any one of those different things maybe could be a bad day, or like might be, you think, oh, I'm just going through a phase, but you mentioned that you might actually observe a change in someone. So that was interesting to me. And then you also said about, if you've got one or sometimes multiple of those things too. So sometimes it's a combo. That stood out to me from what you said, Dave.
Yeah, most definitely. So if these are persistent, a lot of so a lot of the books kind of look at a 2-week kind of principle. So these are pervasive in multiple different environments for longer than 2 weeks. Then it's time to start seeking help for sure. But that doesn't mean a single bad day can tip people over the edge. So as I said before, if there's a big change or you have any concern whatsoever, then definitely talk to someone, reach out.
You've outlined some very important points there of what to look out for, or what to notice when you are going through that yourself as well. So here's another question. If you or a friend or family member is suffering from depression or anxiety, what are the best avenue for seeking help?
Yeah. It may be a personal thing. So a lot of practitioners will put in place a plan. And the plans are often very simple. The first one may be do something you enjoy. The second point may be find a friend, find someone you care about, find someone you know cares about you.
Yeah.
Third point may be speaking to a professional, a doctor, anyone you know that can help. And the last point, if you're having a real struggle and all the above failed, then it's time to go to an emergency department, I think. Yeah. But ultimately, reach out, I think, is the main thing. Yeah.
It's so hard to reach out when you're going through it, though, isn't it?
It's really tough. Myself, when I was struggling with very severe depression, I felt like no one would care. You know? If I put my hand out there for someone to grab it, no one would be on the other end. And having gotten out of that hole myself, it's the furthest from the truth possible.
Yeah.
Always someone there to help.
So there's a stigma around mental health, isn't it? It sounds like. So I know last time we spoke, both Nicole and Dave, you expressed that there is a stigma and that there's a need to reduce that stigma. Can you talk us through that? Both of you, yeah.
Would you like to comment?
Yeah, I think I'd love to comment, especially on the stigma that's placed, not necessarily on purpose by the church, but that is definitely seen, and that a lot of people feel it. And I've spoken to people about this, and they've spoken to me as well. I wanted to share a little story about this. So one of my best friends from primary and middle school took her own life a few years ago. Very sad. I remember being at the memorial, and they spoke so much about her faith and her love of God, and it was at the forefront of what everyone remembered about her. And after the service, I remember being in a conversation with a family friend, an older Christian man, and he just could not wrap his head around it. He couldn't understand how, you could be a Christian, have faith in God, and then take your own life. And I think this is the myth that we need to dispel in our church. Mental illness is just that. It is an illness, and it can have many causes. There's genetics and underlying diseases and traumas and things like that. So if you went to the doctor and he told you, I'm sorry, you have cancer or something like that, after that you go and you get treatment. And of course, God is involved in that. Of course he is. But he is the one that gives you the tools to treat the illness. You don't have mental illness because you don't have faith. You have mental illness, and faith is part of the treatment plan.
That's really well put. Faith is part of the treatment plan. I think I'm with you there, Nicole. I think we has not just the church, but Christianity across the board. We sort of signatize or put, things in that, all right, well, you can't commit suicide. You can't take your own life, and we say, no, that person is not going to heaven. But hey, we're not here to judge. In fact, in the Bible, God says, and especially Revelation, where he says, there will be no more pain, and it's painful going through this. There'll be no more pain, no more suffering. All the things that is in the old world will be renewed, is basically what he's saying. So thank you for highlighting that, Nicole. Dave, what about you?
Oh, yeah. Stigma is it's a big issue around mental health. And it's also a big issue around treatment of mental health.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kind of negative stigma surrounding pharmacotherapies for mental health, or psychological therapies for mental health. There's always the word shrink with the negative bias attached to it when they're saying they're going to a psychiatrist or something. And there should be no judgment around that, and they're professionals that are there to help. This stigma, it just needs to be abolished. And I think I can speak for Nicole as well. I think that's what we want to get our stories out there and encourage people that it's not something to be ashamed of. People are there in many different ways.
Do you think part of the stigma as well comes from it being like a hidden illness in some ways as well? Like, sometimes we have surface level interactions with people throughout our day and perhaps unaware of struggles that are going on, unseen, because maybe it doesn't affect someone's physical appearance. But it's so interesting, if anyone was to bring up a topic of mental health, I'm quite sure that most people would have come across either in themselves, a friend or a family member, a situation where there's been a mental health struggle. It's very, very common. Like the statistics said, more than 50%. But it's very much sometimes a hidden battle.
It not often comes to the surface, and people that are struggling with it through one way or another are very good at hiding it. It's the most unfortunate thing that sometimes their friends and family don't know until it's too late.
I think the other part of that stigma as well is that a lot of people haven't dealt with that kind of issue, and so don't understand, and so they're kind of like, if I don't get it, or if I've never experienced it, maybe it doesn't exist. And that's kind of what's funny. In my family, there's 5 of us, but my mum has been the only one that hasn't really struggled that much with anxiety or depression or anything like that. It was only recently that she went through some depression because of some stuff that was going on in all our lives. And I remember her telling us, being like, oh, I get it now. Like that, I understand now. So just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it doesn't exist or it's not fully real.
It's a great point, Nicole. Yeah.
It's a great point. And I think, I don't know whether it was Dave or Nicole that made this comment when last time we spoke, but there's a stigma in Christianity and in church. Some have expressed that they don't really want to talk about it sometimes because they're uncomfortable in sharing it because they get labeled as that it's a faith issue. You don't have enough faith, so you're obviously going through that, and that is the danger. And if you are watching this and you say that to someone, I don't know how politely I can put this, but do not say that. It is not a faith matter, because that person have their own relationship with God. And also, I think it was you, Dave, that made this, and I love this. You made this comment that encourage someone to seek help they're comfortable with. Any help is better than no help at all.
That's great.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Like the little plan that I outlaid earlier, point number 1, talk to someone you care about, talk to a friend, talk to a family member.
Yeah.
Anyone.
Something else.
Yeah.
Something else that I'd add to that as well is that if you are on the receiving end of someone talking to you about it, or even if they've joked about it, kind of just take it seriously no matter what they've kind of said. Sometimes a joke, you know, I have a dark sense of humor, so sometimes I joke about it, but my friends know that I'm kidding most of the time, and then afterwards they might ask me like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm actually okay. But it's good to kind of just like rewind and be like, hey, what was that about? Because there could be something else going on. And we spoke about this earlier as well when we were having another chat, that when people make, you know, suicidal threats, or they're like, oh, I'm gonna kill myself, is like, that's not a fun thing to say. But when people label that as like, oh, you know, they're just seeking attention. And I think that's such a strange thing to say, because yes, that is what they're doing. They are seeking attention. They need attention from you. Something's going on, whether they do actually want to follow through with that, or whether they just need help in a different area. Like, there's clearly something going on if they're saying that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point there, Nicole. Can I add to that? In my pre-hospital role, so we get called to these kinds of things semi-regularly, and the person who picks up the phone and calls is a friend or family member. So the person that's struggling and has made those claims that they are feeling like ending their life or hurting themselves, they are very rarely the one that picks up the phone and makes the call. It's the friend that's worried about them.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, take it seriously, by all means.
Yeah. Yeah. Because quite often, and I've heard this myself, and I think I've said it as well myself before I even understood how enormous this issue is. You know, once that person is gone, you're often thinking, well, how come I didn't know what was happening? Could I have done something? Was it my fault? Why didn't I know? Like, all these questions run through our minds when, you know, when they've actually been saying stuff and we haven't even taken notice because we thought, oh, they're just seeking attention. But I like what Nicole said as well. Like, they are seeking attention, you know, and it's not like they're crying out for some help. Yeah, cool. Another question that I have for you guys is that, what can a friend do to support friends or family suffering with mental health?
So this might be a prime time for some resources to pop up.
I've put up one already, so I might put up another one.
Oh.
So there's Australia has started this fantastic program, so Mental Health First Aid Australia. I'd encourage everyone to have a look. Not only that, St. John's and some other organisations have started a mental health first aid course. Yeah, there we are. Nicole's got.
Good.
They are quite comprehensive, and they answer a lot of the questions that sometimes people are too scared to ask. And they'll give you that little bit of confidence if you find yourself in a position if a close friend is really struggling and does say those things that are quite hard to answer. And it'll give you some tools in the toolbox, so to speak, as to how to get them to help them. Absolutely invaluable course. I'd encourage everyone to give it a go. I did mine a year and a half ago. As I said, very comprehensive, excellent. So we obviously don't want to find ourselves in the situation where we are the one offering that help, because I wouldn't wish that kind of suffering on anyone.
Yeah,
but it's definitely worth being prepared, and that is a great place to start.
I know last time we spoke, Dave, you came up with these cool plans, and it was a simple plan. Do you want to just give us a glimpse of that simple plan that you were talking about?
Oh yeah. I mentioned it briefly earlier. Yeah. So
yeah,
if you're having a tough day, if you're having a tough time, number one, do something you enjoy, or call someone you enjoy spending time with. And you can prepare them for that. Close friend, it's like, look, I've been having a few more rough days than normal. Here is my list of things to do when I am having a rough day, and you're number one in it. That prepares them. They know when they pick up the phone and they're calling and they've said, I'm having a rough day, they're working their way down the list, and you need to pay attention.
Yeah.
That's number one.
So having a good, strong support network is key, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. And
Yep.
friends that care and family that keep looking out for you.
So number one,
terms-
you enjoy, call someone you enjoy.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Nicole.
I was just gonna say, in addition to that, because that's like a short term. If when you're in crisis, you've got that short term plan for you to be like, hey, call a friend, go to the hospital, Lifeline, all those kinds of things. As a more personal, long term thing, something that's really helped me, and I've spoken to my psychologist about this, is I was actually telling her about an anxiety attack that I had that went kind of poorly, and how my system actually failed a little bit. I couldn't reach the people I needed to talk to at the time, and it felt like it kind of spiraled. And yeah, I just wasn't in a position to go to the hospital at the time. It just wasn't working out. So I told my psychologist this, hoping for some sympathy, and she didn't give it to me. And she just kind of said, well, well, why can't you rely on yourself? And I kind of was like, oh, okay. So we're all human. My husband is human. My friends are human. My family are all human. And they are going to be unavailable, or they're going to say the wrong thing, because sometimes people say the wrong thing. So what can I do to either prevent this kind of thing from happening, or to help myself when it is happening? And that's something I've had to work on a lot. And it's a lot of work, but it is so worth it. And it's just nice to know that if I was in a crisis and there was no one left on the planet Earth and it was just me and God, I think I could kind of work my way through it. Hopefully, there's that support from myself as well. And I think that's where, that the importance of seeking, a psychologist that can help you go through that therapy and all that kind of thing, help you with your own plan, I guess, with yourself, is so important. So I definitely encourage people, if they're not sure what to do about their problem, is to go see a GP, ask for a mental health care plan. Most GPs these days are pretty happy to talk about it, and they're pretty well versed in this kind of thing. It's a lot more common than we want it to be. But go see a doctor for sure.
Yeah,
I'll help you seek some help.
Yeah, excellent. Lucy, I know your mom's is a doctor and she's in this area. Can you share some story, maybe a personal story, or, stories that your mom is out with and what you've seen?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So my mom's a psychiatrist. And so growing up in the household with a shrink was interesting. And so I guess our family actually probably dealt with a bit of that stuff on a stigma level at times. Like my mum's really, I've sort of watched her come up against that in her career. And I think probably something that my mum was always really good at asking questions. And so I think she taught me some good questions to ask myself at times, and also to ask my friends. And I also must admit, I probably did inherit a little bit of my mum's affirming nod at times too, that whole active listening kind of thing. Probably why I've got issues, but that's all right. But I think for me, having a mum that was in the mental health field probably helped me to normalize mental health to an extent. It was a conversation that we had regularly. We talked about mood and low mood and good mood, and mum was really good at pointing out times when she thought maybe I might need a bit of help, or who to chat to and things like that. And so I think for me that was really helpful. I also think that my mum, it's probably she deals with lots of different types of mental illness. She deals a lot with women's mental illness at the moment as well, around childbearing and pre and post natal health as well. And so that's quite specific. But yeah, I'm really proud of her because I think it's a really tough gig. And yeah, working with some of those challenges of stigma and trying to be an advocate is a really important role. Yeah, so I think probably something that helped for me as well is just having someone else to talk to. So even if it was like myself that I was struggling, or maybe I was observing something, whether it was at school or later on in uni or in work, where I noticed a friend of mine struggling, I could go to my mum and have a chat about that and tell her what I was observing and sort of ask her to point me in the right direction. So even as friends, sometimes we need to seek help for ourselves as friends, and to try and make sure that we're not carrying the load of that another person's struggles. And of course, you know, being confidential and respecting another person's story is important. But yeah, it's good for us to make sure that we're not taking all of that on for ourselves, but actually dealing with it in a healthy way too, as people that can keep caring.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Lucy. Yeah. So here's another question for us. If a friend or family member mentions that they have suicidal thoughts, what is the best way to respond? I know that we've talked about it and, you know, take it seriously and all that sort of thing, but how do we respond? What's the best way?
Have you found yourself in this position before, Nicole, reaching out?
I've been on kind of both ends of it. I work with some kids, so sometimes they might say something like that, and thankfully I'm in a system where I can be like, there is a school psychologist, let's take you there right now. Because, you know, I'm not the medical professional in that situation. When I'm the one asking for help, if I'm saying, hey, I'm thinking about this, I kind of just need someone to be in the room. You know, I don't necessarily need them to do anything unless I've done something to myself. But if I've said something like, I'm feeling really low, I think I might take it to another level that I'm not confident with. It would be just great to have someone on the phone or, you know, in the room, just being like, hey, I'm here for you. Talk to me if you need to. Tell me if you need me to call like a hospital or anything like that. But I think the main thing is if they're there, you know, you're less likely to kind of spiral. And then, you know, sometimes it's just good to distract them a little bit as well. But you can actually just ask someone what they need in that time as well.
I'm very glad you said that, and you know, that was part of the reason why I wanted you to answer this. What I was going to say really is one of the first things, and probably the most important thing, if someone were to reach out to you in that scenario, is give them your absolute undivided attention. They are the most important thing in the room at that time, and you need to be there for them.
I think also what you said as well, Nicole, is like the importance of a response then and there. Like, you know, that there may be wider context and there may be issues to kind of go into more detail at another time. But as soon as someone kind of raises that issue of this actually kind of indicating that they're in a crisis, it's about like a first response kind of thing. Are they safe? That's the first question that we got to ask. You know, is there someone nearby? Is it you that can continue to get on the phone to them and just stay with them while you're on the phone? Or, you know, maybe it's moving beyond a text message to actually making a phone call and hearing each other's voice. That can be really important, really grounding, just to actually check in. Are they safe at the moment? Are they near people? And
I'm so glad you mentioned Lucy. That's so important. Safety is absolutely paramount, and you're very you have a very low probability of assessing their safety if you're not paying attention. So give them your attention and make sure. And if you have any doubt in their safety whatsoever, that's where you can reach out.
Sorry, Dave. There might be some technical issues here. Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So in summary, what I'm hearing is a very strategic way of approaching people and responding, like assessing the risks. Knowing, have they been thinking about this? Another question to ask. Do they have a plan to carry it out? Do they have the equipment to carry this out? And then I think one of you mentioned this before. You know, take it seriously, and if you're unsure, refer them to someone who can help, and someone that they can trust and are comfortable in talking to. Yeah, very important. Another question that I have is, what are some practical steps that we can take to optimize our mental health?
Again, it's going to be very personalized.
Sorry, Dave. We might have to try that again, please, Dave.
No problem.
There you go. Yeah.
That's better.
Oh, sorry, it's my end. I apologize. So back to the question. So things can improve your own mental health.
Yeah.
A multifaceted approach is great. So getting outdoors, getting some sun, moving, exercising, anything you can do to get your body going. Hopefully tackle one aspect of the tree.
It's interesting that lots of the things that are good for our physical body are also good for our mental health too. You know, like having a good diet, getting some good sleep, doing some exercise, getting outside.
That's it.
Taking that 5-minute glimpse of winter sunshine between the rain. Yeah, all those things that also have a really good impact on our mental health as well.
Yeah. And that's the first part, isn't it? The physical perspective of this multifaceted model that you're talking about, Dave. You know, getting outdoors. Yeah. No, it's cool. What's another model? Sorry, Nicole.
Go ahead,
No,
Nicole.
you go.
It's all right.
Okay, so another approach is if you are receiving help from a medical professional, try your best to give it a crack. I see a lot of people that are very scared to take their medication, and the medication can often make a very big difference and can be that helping hand to pull them out of the hole that they're stuck in.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point that you said, pull them out of the hole, because sometimes, you know, medication might not be the full long-term solution, but it at least, you know, gets you out of that place where you can think a bit clearer, be a bit more rational, and do all that kind of things. So you can go exercise and you can change something about your diet, but if you're in that dark place and you can't even get out of bed, how are you going to go outside and go for a run, you know?
Yeah. I know, coming from a Pacific Island background, and I'm finding it quite interesting as well in our Western culture, but in the Pacific Island background or culture, there's this thing called shame. Shame, and it comes in so many facets. So shame of giving my family a bad name, because in the islands, family name is quite important and it's sacred, and you do everything to make sure that that's protected or that's, you know, being celebrated. So whenever someone is suffering, they often suffer alone because they're ashamed of doing that. Shame of coming out and sharing, shame of, in fact, going exercise is not even a big thing in the island. Like going for a walk, going run, they love playing sports, but exercising is not something that is big on our agenda. So talking to people, it can be a challenge as well at times. Talking to people. So
Mm.
Eating is a big issue for us. We love our food, but having a healthy, balanced diet is non-existent in our culture. But it's important by the sounds of what I'm hearing tonight.
I was wondering as well, maybe Dave or Nicole, what do you reckon about the role that, you know, being in a part of a community can have with our mental health too? Like, I mean, we're so blessed as Christians to have a community of faith and be a part of a community of believers. And I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts about how that can be a positive thing for our mental health too.
Oh yeah, definitely. And research has backed this up time and time again. There's been some very simple but powerful studies that have compared outcomes of, you know, mental well-being in different groups, and these groups consisted of exercising with fellowship, so with friends out in the open, exercising on your own, following normal guidelines was another facet of the study. But those that did this in a group outside and exercise often got fantastic results. So yeah, group work is key. Friends are key. Fellowship is key. Yeah, anything you can do in a community, is invaluable. Yeah.
How have you found having the community or church community around you, Nicole?
Pretty good.
Going through what you went through.
Yeah, I think it's especially as you kind of get older through your 20s and then later on, I'm not past that yet, but as you get older, it can feel like your community is getting smaller. You know, your friends are kind of going and doing their other things. For example, I finished uni in 2017, and then 2018 turned out to be the worst year of my life. I felt like I lost my community. I felt like I was losing myself. And it was just like so eye-opening to go like, I need to find people that I can rely on, because, you know, the people I went to uni with, we were very close, but it turned out, you know, it was kind of like a proximity thing. And I think that happens to a lot of people. They'll leave high school or something like that, and you kind of realize, oh, maybe we weren't as close as I thought we were. And then you feel like you're not sure who your friends really are. So when you are kind of making those big changes, it's so important to just note to yourself, oh, this person, and this person. If I have, you know, 3 people that are in my community, that's amazing. That's great. And, you know, those really meaningful relationships with people are just going to be so much more meaningful and useful, I suppose. I don't want to be using people, but useful to you than feeling like, you know, you need to be in a big group of people. I know I'm not really an introvert, so I don't really relate to having smaller groups of people. I want to be friends with everyone all the time. But it's important to remember that, you know, there are people that care about you, and to reach out to them, and they can reach out to you, and just knowing that that community is there for you, whether it's small or bigger than that.
Cool. I want to I'll leave the faith question here because I want to come back to it, and I want to wrap up our time together on that topic. But I'm just going back to the start where actually mentioned that, you know, there are some trigger warnings like domestic violence and all that sort of thing. I remember from a conversation that we had earlier on this week that domestic violence is having an impact on mental health. Can you explain that a little bit, or elaborate on it a little bit, Dave?
Yeah. Look, there's no data on this yet, but my own personal experience working in a hospital environment is the rate.
Yeah, working again. Yeah.
Sorry, I'll start again.
Yeah.
It's going crazy over there.
Going crazy, yeah. I'm not quite sure what's happening here. Try again, Dave.
Round 3, here we are.
Okay. Oh.
So prevalence of domestic violence has increased, and I don't have the data to back this up, but unfortunately, very sadly, I have the experience to back that up. And I think a lot of that is underpinned by the recent quarantine with coronavirus. People were in some dangerous environments with some dangerous people, and domestic violence is a sad truth that we see today. I wouldn't exist, but unfortunately it does. And because it's here, it does underpin a lot of mental health. So if you're ever scared for your safety or someone else's safety, don't ever be afraid to reach out. And I think one of the links that will be posted today is specifically for sufferers of domestic violence.
Yeah. It does exist. We can't hide it. It exists, and it's affecting community, and it's affecting families, and it's affecting relationships, unfortunately. So I want to reiterate what Dave said. If you're watching tonight, and you're in a situation where domestic violence is evident, please seek help. Please don't be afraid to speak out and to notify authority. Here's a question for you. Unless, Lucy, did you have something to say?
No, while you're chatting, I just want to look something up, because little while ago there was this really cool thing that I saw about sometimes it can be difficult to ask for help if you're in one of those really dangerous situations. Yeah. And I actually saw there's this like hand signal. I just want to see if I can find it while you're chatting. So keep going, and I just want to see.
I think there was another ad as well on the phone. There's words that you use on the phone.
Yes.
Here's a question for you guys, and while Lucy's thinking, we're in coronavirus restrictions. How or what would be your advice or word of encouragement to those that are going through, that are being affected by coronavirus? Not by the virus itself, but their mental state.
Yeah. The isolation is a bit scary. It's a lot better now, especially for us in WA. But yeah, the isolation, I found that really hard, and the uncertainty of everything's been really hard. Something that's helped me a lot to just kind of get through a day, and I'm kind of better with it now, but especially when we were really stuck in our houses, was I would make a little playlist of songs that was 30 minutes long. And I would play that, and then I'd get something done. It didn't have to be anything big. It could just be doing a couple of dishes. Like, it did not have to be anything. I could sweep I could do some laundry, because when you're feeling really low, it can be so easy to get behind on those things. And for me, if my house gets too crazy, it just makes me want to spiral more. I get into like this anxious state, and I can't do anything, and I feel paralyzed. And yeah, paralyzed is the word I want to use there. So those little 30-minute playlists were really helpful for me, because they firstly were only 30 minutes long, so I didn't have to commit to anything past that. So I could do anything up to 30 minutes, and if that playlist ended and I was like, yeah, that's it, I could finish there. But if I just kind of was like, oh, actually I can keep going, then I could keep going, and there was no shame either way. And it was also just really energizing because I liked the music. But I think in general, setting little timers for yourself could be really helpful. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm just going to get up and shower. I'm just going to, do something, really reply to 2 emails or like something like that. Just setting little goals for yourself, rather than looking around your house or looking in your office and going, this is the 1,000 things I have to do today. Just trying to break things down into really bite-sized chunks to make everything doable, rather than freaking yourself out. That was really helpful for me.
How about you, Dave?
Practical, Nicole. I love that.
Oh, thanks.
It's simple, eh?
Yeah.
How about you, Dave?
Oh, to be honest, I don't know if I'm the best person to comment on that one.
Okay.
I worked through quarantine, so
Yeah.
I was always fortunate to spend time with people. Yeah, so I feel absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Can I speak on your behalf, actually? If you're watching this and you're in the medical field, also in the education side of things, and you have been classified as an essential worker, we just want to say thank you so much for your service to our community and our state. So hats off to you. All right. Lucy, did you find that what you're looking for?
I did find it. It's actually from the Canadian Women's Foundation. So I'd love to know if anyone's aware of an Australian equivalent or if we've accepted this one. But yeah, it was a hand gesture. Actually, because I think they found that a lot of conversations were happening over Zoom and things like that. So it was a hand gesture that they came up with, and it's like this. So you put your hand like that. So that's kind of like a signal for help, specific to domestic violence. So that was the Canadian Women's Foundation that developed that one. I'll chuck a link up in our Facebook chat to that one too. I'm not sure if there's an Australian equivalent, but I think the concept is cool.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Look, guys, I've really enjoyed our time together tonight. We've got 4 to 5 minutes left, and we want to finish off on our on the faith topic. The faith. So, how can faith help with mental health? And I would actually go around the circle. Well, we're not in a circle. Actually, we're in a screen, and my screen is kind of square. So I will go around and get your own, your thoughts on this from your own experience and also what you've seen. Is that cool? So I will start with my right, which is Nicole. How can faith help with mental health?
Yeah, it's super important, and like I said before, in the really cheesy phrase, there's this part of the plan. I'm going to coin that. It's so important. There's a spiritual part to all of us, and so that's something we should definitely pay attention to. And there's this one part in the Bible, and I think I really liked it, and I thought I'd share a little bit of it. My friend, or our friend, Jess Key, put me onto this chapter in Psalms that I find really weirdly comforting. Cool. And so maybe my millennial and Gen Z friends will find it comforting as well. It's Psalm 88, and I'll just read a little piece of it. O Lord, God of my salvation, I cry out to you by day, I come to you at night. Now hear my prayer, listen to my cry. For my life is full of troubles, and death draws near. I am as good as dead. They have left me among the dead, and I lie like a corpse in the grave. I am forgotten, cut off from your care. And it goes on. And the reason why I find that so comforting, it just fills my heart. It just doesn't make me feel so alone. I think we tend to idolize the people from the Bible as these, heroic and constantly devoted people. And just to know that people back in the day felt just the same way that I do now, even with their incredible faith, makes me feel hugely comforted. And then you can go on and read Psalm 23 and pick yourself up a little bit. But I think, just read your Bible. Sometimes it's not always going to be like happy. Like I really like that verse just because it makes me feel a little better about things. But definitely turn to your Bible, turn to God. He's always there, even though it may not feel like it. You can always go that direction, and it'll at least kind of hopefully give you some peace.
Thank you. Thanks, Nicole. Hey, God and peace, hey? God does say that his peace, I give you peace, not like the world gives you, but peace that transcends all understanding. All right. Sorry, Dave, any thoughts from you?
Am I next on the circle square?
You are. Yeah, you're on my left.
Look, it's a question for me. When I struggled the most with my mental health, was quite some time ago, and I was very much an atheist at that stage. I did not believe in God or the church, and I ultimately wanted nothing to do with it when I was in the deep, dark depths of depression. I truly felt like I was alone. I was unwanted and unloved, and no one was there to help me. And it was some of the hardest times of my life. It really was. And now, as a Christian, I know that I am loved. I am not alone. God is there, and He wants the best for me, and He loves me.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if I knew that then, I can't imagine how different it would have been.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Dave. That's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Hi, Lucy.
Yeah, what do I think about? What does faith have to do with mental health? Well, I kind of think it has everything to do with mental health, actually. One of the incredible gifts that we have as Christians is that we know that we're holistic beings. We've got, a spiritual component to our lives. We have, our mental component. We also have our physical bodies, and there's strong links between all of that. And I think our God is a holistic God, and He cares about every aspect of our life. One of when I was going through some mental health challenges from time to time, I was so blessed to have a Christian counsellor. And for me, that was wonderful, because God gives us some really beautiful tools for dealing with mental health, like prayer, talking to God. And we actually use some of those as strategies to help in those situations. So that was a real gift to me, to have a Christian counsellor that I could confide in. We could actually involve God as a critical part of helping me through those times. So I think we're very blessed to have a God that does care about every aspect of our life, and who cares about the big things. But I love it in that Matthew, I think, is it Matthew chapter 5 or Matthew chapter 10, those verses that talk about worry. But God actually looks at the sparrow, this tiny little insignificant thing. And sometimes when we're in struggles, we feel like our troubles maybe are insignificant, but or something small can actually be having a really big impact on our life. And God actually is a God of detail as well, and that gives me a lot of comfort.
Excellent. Yeah, I love that. I love those the sharing that we've been able to do tonight. So I'm just going to give an overall summary, and if you guys can jump in at any time you want. And I want to say this again for our viewers, and for whoever watches this later on as well, that the thoughts and everything that's being expressed tonight are our own personal thoughts and experiences as well. Okay. We have put in the link there, some links to the different resources that you can follow and you can look up, not only for yourself, but for someone that you are concerned about. Okay. How can faith help with mental health? Well, I'm just going to read some of the stuff that actually we shared last time we talked. I think it was Nicole that mentioned this, the importance of knowing that you are loved, you are wanted, and that understanding who you are in God. And I love that. So if you're watching tonight, I want you to know this, understand this, and believe this, that you are loved, that you are wanted, that you are the most valuable possession that God has. There is also importance in the Word of God. There are so many promises, so many different promises that really uplifts us. And Nicole, like Nicole said as well, shared that that people in the Old Testament, in the olden days, they also suffered what we're going through today despite their faith and their strong connection with God. So we can expect the same thing, because, hear me out here, because God doesn't change. He's the same yesterday, he's the same today, and he's the same tomorrow and forever. What he promised back then, he's so good on his promises even now. Also, I picked up earlier on that, and Dave was explaining this, there are different models or approaches, and this is a holistic approach. There's a physical approach. So get out, get involved in some sporting events that's happening out there. Get involved in playing squash, playing soccer. And I know that the boys have a boys' night out. I'm going to give a big shout out here to the boys. I think it's James Gray and all the boys. They look out for each other. So they have a boys' night out where they play some squash or soccer, and watch a movie and have dinner together. That is a nice little community. So don't be afraid to get out and play some sports and do some activities. What you eat can also contribute to our mental health. So get rid of the Maccas. All right.
Well, we're not going to be sponsored now, are we, really?
Lucy, you didn't have to say we're sponsored by Maccas. Gee. It's worse that we're sponsored by KFC, but hey, no, none of that. But
Can I also add to that, Willie? So I was just going to say, can I add to that? To know, your whole, and what you were saying before, Lucy, about being holistic with your health, your mind, body, spirit is all connected. And something that I encourage anyone to do is to find the root cause of what might be happening and what might be causing whatever problems that you are having. So for me, I ended up in hospital after trying to harm myself, and then it was there that they discovered that I had an underlying condition that caused depression. So, and while I'm not 100% cured, just knowing that, and there's some other stuff that I've also dealt with, knowing that I have that kind of helps treat a bit of the issues that I have. And so, I know that if I eat gluten or too much sugar, I know that I'll get depressed for a few days. So I try to avoid those things. I know that if I do yoga, that I'm going to, feel a lot more centered and grounded in myself than if I don't. So it's just knowing those things and then knowing how to treat your root causes that I think is also really important.
Yeah,
it's very much biopsychosocial, right? So you've got the biological aspect, which is getting out, moving, exercising, eating well. You have a psychological aspect, and this is where talking to a psychologist or a counsellor is absolutely invaluable, helping you get to the root of those thoughts that are self-destructive. And then you have a social aspect, community and fellowship, and doing things, having friends and having family that are there to support you. And God above all that, he is always there, he loves you.
Absolutely. Well put, Dave. You took the words out of my mouth, and you actually said it well than what I would have said. I would go further and say this, coming out, like, I think we are in a blessed sort of state at the moment with COVID-19 and the restrictions on our end of our beautiful country. But coming out of this COVID-19 and restrictions being eased, I know there are some that are struggling to go to church as well, and probably question, how what church would look like. How church and mental health connect is this: small groups, your social network. It's very, very important that you connect with people during the week. And if you connect with people, so get involved in a small group. Let us know what that looks like and what you want that small group to look like during the week, because that is a very good support network. Because Sabbath, when you go to church on Sabbath, it's about us celebrating each other and worshiping God. So, but thank you so much for your time tonight. We have gone over time, but that's okay, because I believe that you guys have shared a lot of great information tonight, and I'm grateful for you, for your willingness to come up online tonight and share and being vulnerable and share your story. So thank you again. Lucy, can I invite you to say a prayer for us to close us off?
Sure.
But before
love
you
to.
do close off, our roundtable discussion will be back in a month's time, and hopefully we'll have Amy by then. All right. Thanks, Lucy.
Sure. Let's pray. Father God, we just want to thank you so much that we've been able to have a chat about a topic that we know is close to your heart as well. And Lord, I want to thank you especially for Nicole and Dave and Willie, and that we've been able to share and be vulnerable and share from our learnings and our own experience. And Lord, we've learned as well that faith and the beautiful community that you set up for us called church and fellowship is really important when we're having mental health struggles. And we've also learned about how your love is essential for us too. So whoever is listening tonight, God, we just pray that they would really feel that this evening, that you love them very dearly, and you want to be involved with them in their life, and you walk with them through their struggles. God, if anyone out there tonight is in a low place, we pray that you would meet them where they're at, that you would also be with them and give them courage to seek help. And Lord, if we have friends who have friends who are struggling at this time, help us to be aware of their struggles. Help us to be a good friend, to look out for our mates and our people in community that we come into contact with. And Lord, just help us to remind us that each person has struggles that we may not be aware of all the time. And we just ask that your Holy Spirit would create us to be people who care and love each other deeply. Lord, thank you that we could have this space to talk this evening, and we just pray your blessing over it, and thank you for the time that we've had to share together. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of the week and weekend ahead.
Thanks, Willie.
All right, no
Thank
worries.
you.
Thank you
thanks,
to our viewers tonight.
See ya.
See ya.